Hello and welcome to this week's Strange Pathways. I am your host, Scott Mort. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and I apologize for getting this out very late to you. Unfortunately, we had some technical issues. Could not quite make it in time, but just think of this as a nice late gift. Our first tale comes to us from the wonderful Brad Steiger and his book Alien Meetings. We're going to go all the way back to the summer of 1959, somewhere in Pennsylvania. The witness, who preferred to remain anonymous, was sitting in his lounge chair, reading, kind of dozing off. But it was that weird kind of tenseness that you get. He was tense and restless, but at the same time very tired, dozing off. He decides to look over near the door, and even though he can't see through the door, of course, he knew there was somebody on the other side of the door. No one knocked. No one rang a doorbell. He didn't hear footsteps. He just knew someone was on the other side. He laid down his book, went over to the door, opened it just a little bit, and saw two men dressed in black. They seem Asian, and they look like identical twins. He said they seemed Asian, but they were definitely not Asian. Now, for this entire encounter, these two men in black, they don't say a single word, but the anonymous witness hears in his mind, "Are you ready?" He doesn't know why, but he feels like, yeah, he was ready. It was a viciously hot Pennsylvania night. If you've never been in Pennsylvania in the summer, it gets so humid, and it's thick, and that water in the air just does not allow the sweat to evaporate, and it can be miserable. Absolutely miserable. I remember whenever I was younger going to California, and it was miserably hot then too, 114 degrees, but it didn't feel as bad as a 90-degree day in Pennsylvania, because those 90-degree days are just vicious with the humidity. This guy had stripped down naked, and I don't blame him. He decides that, yes, he's ready, and he reaches for a pair of shorts. And he hears in his mind again, that will not be necessary. No one will see you. The men step out into the hall, and somehow they teleport on top of a flat hill in the back of the apartments near the area. Now, they're very near a road, and the man, still naked, remember, he notices the headlights of a car coming down the street. So he tries to hide behind the two men in black, and then he can hear them laughing in his mind. And they tell him, "We told you no one would see you. Try it." This man decides if he's going to be goofy, he's going to be very goofy. He steps in front of them, spreads his feet apart, puts his hands on his hips, and he's just like, "I dare you to see me." The car is driving by very slowly, so slow he's able to see that there is a man and a woman in the car. It passes just a few feet from the trio. Car doesn't even give them a second thought. Doesn't even register to the driver and the passenger. Now, the man's mind, the witness, his mind is blown. He turns to say something to the men in black, and he realizes they're both looking up. So he follows the direction that they're looking, and he sees an opening. There's something up there with an opening. And there's a blue-white light coming out of it. the witness gets this nausea. And he said it was very much like when you're in an elevator or an airplane that's dropping too fast. That the gravity that you're getting isn't the gravity that you're used to, and your innards shift a little bit. And then he realizes, I can see the apartments. I can see the ground, and they're going away from me. They're floating up towards this object with the opening. And as they get closer to the opening, the witness blacks out. Who knows how much later it is, but he comes to. He's lying on his side facing a wall. He rolls over, sits up, and he's in a room that resembles, his words, a wedge of pie with the point bitten off. It's bare. It's bare. And except for this lump where he's sitting, everything is blue-gray. Now remember, this little lump, it's almost like it's growing out, like it's a projection of the material itself. The walls are very hard, and the floor very hard, but this lump that comes out of this blue-gray material, it's the same stuff as the walls, it's the same stuff as the floor, but it's very, very soft. And you know what I think? Whenever I hear a room is shaped like a wedge of pie with a bite taken out of the point, well, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, that's probably what the rooms on a saucer are shaped like. The room itself is bathed in a soft glow. No shadows anywhere. But there's no light source. It's like the light is coming from everywhere. He hears a female voice say, "He's awake now." Doesn't see a speaker, though. A door opens on one of the walls. Wasn't there before. It just appears and opens, and he can see into a hallway. Two shadows flit across the door. Not really enough to figure out anything about their shapes. It's too fast, too distorted. But once again, he gets that mental flash. He gets that impression that two people are approaching, a man in the front and a woman in the back. And they're carrying a tray filled with surgical instruments, syringes. The next memory he has, the very next memory, being back in his apartment, in his chair, reading his book. Everything else vanishes from that point. Now this next little bit, take of it what you will. The book he was reading, it vanishes. It vanishes for a week. And then later is found right on the same spot where he left it. The witness and his roommate, his roommate was a special agent of the FBI, turned the apartment upside down, started at one end of the apartment, moved, dusted, waxed, and cleared everything all the way to the other end. They find things they'd forgotten about, other things they'd lost, but no sign of the book. And then 1 week later, it's right on the edge of the desk. One has to wonder, and this is what I find to be the most fascinating part of it, the fact that other human beings couldn't see them. Did the men in black, did these aliens have some sort of cloaking device that made them invisible? Or, and hear me out on this theory, the witness's body was left behind at the apartment. The reason why those two people in the car never noticed the bare naked witness is that his body wasn't there to begin with. These men in black, not figments of the imagination, I don't want you to get that idea, but non-corporeal entities, ghosts, spirits, tricksters, and all this stuff that happened on the craft, that was an experiment on this man's body. It was an experiment on his soul. And that little thing of the book missing and then reappearing, that's to let you know that yes, it did happen. It's been said before that any technology far advanced from what we currently have would be seen as magic. But what if we took that and we flipped it? Where if something miraculous and magical and supernatural happens, maybe this society has relied so much on technology that we would see an act of pure magic as something technological. Our next tale is going to take us all the way back to 1971. A family home, 3 Reed Avenue, Hexham, Northumberland in the United Kingdom. These two boys, Leslie and Colin Robson, Leslie's 8, Colin is 11, they're digging in the backyard. I don't know if any of you grew up in the country. I grew up in the country. Digging is a major pastime for children. It's, and some adults, quite honestly. Whenever you have nothing to do, you dig a hole. So these two boys, they get down and they find these 2 small stone heads. Now these heads, they're just kind of like palm of your hand. They're about the size of, I would say, just by looking at them, I would say they're about the size of a lemon. And they are not well done artistically. You may think, I'm no artist. Trust me, you could make these heads. Now, they're, like I said, they're basic humanoid approximations. They got pointy little noses. And even though they're very simple, people look at them and they go, I can kind of see that this is supposed to be a woman and this is supposed to be a man. They just get that feeling. Now, the one that became known as the boy had hair modeled in stripes running from the front to the back. The other one, the girl, other people called it the old woman or the hag. She had wide, bulging eyes and a beaked nose. So the heads are examined. They're examined by specialists in prehistory, specialists in archaeology, and these experts really struggled to date them. One person would say it came from this period. Another person would say, oh, no, it's not this. There was a Dr. Ann Ross, and she said that these heads had similarities with Celtic heads of antiquity. But then, you're listening to the show, so you know. Then the weirdness started to happen. At first, it was kind of mild. The heads were moved a little bit. But then it got worse and worse. Pretty soon, bottles are being thrown across rooms. This got so bad that the family next door, the Dodd family, started to have paranormal phenomena happen in their house. Their little boy starts to have his hair pulled by something nobody can see. And one day, Nellie Dodd, the mother of the family, she sees a goat man leaving the house. Let me repeat that for you. She sees a goat man leaving the house. Now, we talked about that expert in cultic artifacts, Dr. Ann Ross. She became part of this story. She got possession of the heads. She wakes up one morning. Dr. Ann Ross wakes up one morning and sees a creature that is half man, half wolf leaving her bedroom. The guts on Dr. Ross are absolutely incredible because she doesn't freak out whenever she sees this half man, half wolf. She follows it through the house, tracks this, I don't want to say werewolf, but it's the easiest thing. We'll say wolfman. She tracks this wolfman to her kitchen, and then it disappears. Her daughter, Bernice, she's coming home from school one day, and she sees a wolfman leap from the stairs into the hallway and disappears. And this isn't, not that this isn't enough, but this isn't the only thing. Dr. Ross's study door flies open. There's a dark figure, a sensation of coldness beside of her. She's really being put through the ringer. Dr. Ross had heard of the Dodds family's experiences and went, it's the heads. It's the Hexham heads. Get them out of my house. Which she does, and these paranormal incidents cease. Now keep in mind, this werewolf, this wolfman creature, in Hexham, there was sightings of this before the heads were ever discovered, though. Going all the way back to 1904. The theory was that there was an escaped wolf from a nearby zoo that killed livestock and was hit by a passing train. But, it's... They called it a wolf-like creature, but nobody ever said that, like, this was a wolf man. This legend kind of evolved from that. Now, a local man named Desmond Craigie comes forward and says, hey, yeah, I know about the Hexham heads. I made them. He says that he was living at the residence that the Robsons moved into in 1956. And he was a stone worker. He made 3 small stone heads for his daughter, something to play with. My dad kind of did the same thing. My dad was a machinist, and he'd make little things for me to goof around with. One of my favorite things that my dad ever made me, it was a little basket. Just a tiny little basket, something that like a squirrel would use, and he made them out of peach pits. So I understand that. Now, the third head was lost, but these 2 heads, he said these two heads remained. He said he used local stone, sand, and water to make these little tiny heads for his kid. So they asked him, hey, Craigie, can you make these heads again? And he does. And they look at it and they go, yeah, this is horrible. This is not good quality. Which, whenever you stop and think about it, remember the original quality of the heads, and we're going to have pictures of the Hexham heads up on the Strange Pathways Facebook page. These heads were not well made, so the fact that Craigie made something less than these heads, that's kind of strange in and of itself in a funny way. More analysis of the Hexham heads goes on. There's a Professor Dearman of the University of Newcastle. He thinks that the heads were molded, like concrete, like it was liquid poured into a mold rather than carved. If you want to see the Hexham heads today, you can't. They're lost. The heads were passed from expert to expert. They went to Southampton University, and then a psychic in 1978 got a hold of them, and they're lost. They are lost, which is a real shame. So much of the paranormal, so much of the unusual is lost. The Kishtim dwarf, now the Stoneheads too. And I really hope that one day these things turn up in some back room. It would be nice to have them. But I wonder in places where they see werewolves, in places where goat men are sighted, I wonder if the Hexham heads might be just around the corner. Our last tale for the night is going to take us all the way back to December 19th, 1973, 2 a.m. in the morning, Vilvoorde, Brussels, Belgium. Our witness is going by the name Mr. V. And he wakes up very early in the morning to head to the bathroom. I mean, I'm willing to bet. Actually, I know exactly what time. 3:30. 3:30 in the morning is usually whenever I wake up to use the bathroom. He walks through the kitchen on the way to his outhouse. And he realizes, oh yeah, I can see in the kitchen a little bit better than I normally do. That's when he notices a green glow shining through the curtains. And he hears a strange noise. It sounds like somebody striking the ground outside of his home with a metal object. He's curious. I think we'd all do the same. That's whenever he kind of peeks through the curtains and he sees this little 3-foot-tall man standing in his yard. And it's sweeping the ground with this metal detector-like device. Now, this 3-foot man, he's wearing a glowing green jumpsuit and this, fishbowl helmet over his head. In the back of the helmet, there's a tube that's going to a backpack on this creature's back, and on its chest, its stomach, there's a sparkling red box. Mr. V wants to get a better look, so he takes his flashlight, shines it through the window on the creature. Now this creature kind of swings its whole body around to face him. It seems like it's not able to simply turn its head. And that's kind of understandable. It's a bulky device. Think of the way Michael Keaton moved in that first Batman movie. He couldn't turn his head left or right, so he had to swing his shoulders. Turn his whole torso in order to see. That's the way this thing is moving. He's not able to see a lot, but he is able to see that this thing has pointed ears and yellow glowing eyes. First thing I'm thinking, pointed ears, glowing yellow eyes. I'm thinking of the Hopkinsville Goblins. That's the first thing I thought of whenever I read this originally. This would have taken place, I believe, after the Hopkinsville Goblins. And maybe this thing knew humans shoot at us. Because it looks at him and gives him the peace sign. That little V sign that you do with your fingers. It gives the man the peace sign and heads towards the back wall. Now remember, those Hopkinsville Goblins, they would kind of float up, float down. They did all sorts of impossible gymnastics. If you want, years and years ago, it's on the YouTube channel, the Strange Pathways YouTube channel. My buddy Chase joined us for an episode where we talked about the Hopkinsville Goblins. Strange Pathways has gone through so many incarnations, but I feel like this right now is the best incarnation of this show. But please, go back, check out our show that Chase and I did on the Hopkinsville Goblins. Chase lives very, very close to that and the Bell Witch site. So please go check out that old show. It's a bit different. So anyway, this Hopkinsville Goblin in a spacesuit, it's heading towards the back wall. Instead of just kind of walking around the wall, it goes over to the wall, puts one foot up on the wall, and begins to walk up the wall like an insect. It always remains perpendicular to whatever surface its foot is touching. It gets to the top, swings itself around in a wide arc, and then down the wall. A few moments later, this saucer that has flashing lights around the edge of it lifts off from behind the wall. The sound is muffled. There's a little tiny dome in the center of it, transparent. The little guy, this 3-foot tall creature, he can see him in the little dome. And it's looking at Mr. V. He kind of waves cheerily to him. The disc rocks back and forth, kind of like pilots, waving their wings back and forth. Off into the sky it goes. Mr. V, he says he never felt any fear. He didn't feel hostile towards the alien or the creature. He didn't receive any type of telepathic communication. And after this craft vanished, he just went, well, that's it. I'm not really shaken by it. He sits down at the table and makes himself a snack. And then he goes off to bed and goes to sleep. Doesn't have any headache or sickness the next morning. Goes out in the morning, inspects his garden. Doesn't find anything. Didn't even leave footprints. All in all, kind of a cheery, happy little occurrence. It certainly has gone a lot worse for a lot of other people. And at the risk of sounding just a bit racist, maybe they're not all bad. Thank you for joining us again this week on Strange Pathways. If you'd like to reach us by email, you can do so at strangepathwaysmail@gmail.com. Don't be afraid. Come over, say hi, share a story with me, ask me a question. Please, please, I am there for you. If you'd like to look at a few images concerning today's tales, head on over to our Facebook page. Just look for Strange Pathways Facebook,
or click the links down below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe over on YouTube. Feel free to leave a review on whatever podcast catcher of your choice that you happen to listen to the show on. Be sure to tell a friend. You know that you have a friend that would absolutely love this show. So please tell your friends, tell your family. I want this show to grow. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves and each other.